let them eat cake.
He took the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. For Ranger, you had to be first. Good morning, peasants. You win. What a race. What a race. Pony Boy in a close second. Douglas Wyan, good morning, peasants. Carlito and Tiffany, good morning, peasants. Carlitos, good morning, y'all from Texas. Pony Boy, third man, I'm slacking. No, Pony Boy, you were second. Drawn doesn't count.
Sounds like I'm watching the Derby.
Takis, good morning. Pony Boy, there again. Pray the Rosary Daily, good morning from sunny Ensenadas. Wow, we've got, let's see.
And coming down the stretch,
Idaho.
it's Pray the Rosary Daily.
Yeah, we've got Idaho, we've got Texas, we've got Maryland, we've got Michigan, we've got California. It is coast to coast right now from sea to shining sea. And I know why you guys joined us. I know why you're here. You're here for the simultaneous sip. And all you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice or a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. And it starts right now.
My, that coffee smells good. Ain't it funny how coffee never tastes as good as it smells?
As you grow older, you'll discover that life is very much like coffee. The aroma is always better than the actuality. May that be your thought for the day.
How great is that? Oh, man. I love the little beep, beep, too. Ron, you didn't play the video. There's a black and white.
I didn't know there was a video.
There's a black and white movie reel that goes with that. Okay, so a couple things in big news. This is brought to you by Dominic Box, J6 political prisoner. Hey, Dom. Breaking, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen will replace Kristi Noem as the next U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security. Kristi Noem has been fired, which isn't really the truth. She hasn't been fired. Donald Trump said this. He said, I am pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security, DHS, effective March 31st, 2006. The current secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well, has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to the special envoy for the Shield of America, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. We are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland. Serving 10 years in the United States House of Representatives and 3 in the Senate, Mark Wayne Mullen has done a tremendous job representing the wonderful people of Oklahoma, where I won 77 out of 77 counties in 2016, 2020, and 2024. A MAGA warrior and former undefeated professional MMA fighter, Mark Wayne Mullen truly gets along well with people and knows the wisdom and courage required to advance our American first agenda. As the only Native American in the Senate, couldn't tell from looking at him, Mark Wayne Mullen is a fantastic advocate for our incredible tribal communities. Mark Wayne will work tirelessly to keep our border secure, stop migrant crime, murders, and other criminals from illegally entering our country, end the scourge of illegal drugs, and make America safe again. Mark Wayne will be a spectacular Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. Okay.
So what the heck happened?
Okay, so I said yesterday on the show, and I didn't want to cover a ton of it, that Kristi Noem just got blasted at her hearing, right? I mean, you had the stuff going on in Minnesota. Of course, the border's been closed, and that's, that makes Democrats big mad. And Rhino's big mad. Right. Tom Tillis. Okay. So it was a really ugly hearing. And it came down to 2 key things. The first thing was there was a $200 million ad campaign that Senator Kennedy brought up. And this $200 million ad campaign went out to 3 contractors to bid on, all of which were connected to Kristi Noem or Corey Lewandowski or a Kristi Noem staffer. Now, I look at that and I go, DC is a small place, and firms that do ads for the government, it's not like, especially for a conservative government, if you're doing ads for Barack Obama, you don't want to turn around and do ads for Trump, not in this political climate. And so part of me is like, well, those might just have been the ad companies that were around. These are ad companies that do ads for other companies, except for one of them that had only incorporated like 11 days prior to the bid going out. I don't remember if they won the bid or not, but it was connected to Kristi Noem. And so Senator Kennedy was like, this doesn't look good. And he grilled her and said, did the president approve a $200 million ad campaign that features Kristi Noem right front and center in all of them?
Right. And I'm imagining like huge billboard posters with Kristi Noem that has some kind of a splash thing on it that says the border is secure or something like that. And then they're just going to put them like on the highway every 20 miles. And
TV commercials. And we've heard them. Yeah. I mean, if you listen to the radio here, you can go to the CPP1 app and get $2,000 and get the out of the country. You know?
Right. So, and then on top of that, you know, they're like making a big deal about the company that was formed 8 days earlier. But this would have happened regardless of which company won. She was connected to all of them. It wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, her or Corey Lewandowski.
Right.
So there was that. And then Senator Kennedy pressed her specifically, did Donald Trump approve this? And she kind of hum and hawed, and well, the politicals did. Yes, he approved it. He didn't approve it, at least not specifically approve it. So apparently he was kind of upset. Okay. And he called Senator Kennedy, as Senator Kennedy described, hopping mad, and asked, what about Markwayne Mullins? So anyways, he literally called Markwayne Mullins, said, I'm setting you up as DHS secretary, hung up the phone, sent this tweet, and Markwayne Mullins was like, okay. So there's videos of him running all over Capitol Hill, getting chased by reporters. He's like, I got to call my dad, and stuff like that, okay? Now, here's what Carlite says. He says, Kristi got blasted by Lewandowski too, ha, 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 ha. Yes, that was the clip I played yesterday, where a Democrat asked Kristi Noem if she had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski since being in office. Now, for some people, that's like, what's going on? This is not new. Okay? 6 years ago, Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski had an affair, and Kristi Noem's husband moved out of the governor's mansion. Oh, okay. Corey Lewandowski is separated from his wife. They're both still married. They both have kids, but they have been a quote unquote political couple the whole time. So I was actually a little disappointed when she was set up as DHS secretary. And then I found out Corey Lewandowski was going to be her shadow. And I was like, okay. Corey Lewandowski is a competent person. He was Trump's campaign manager. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's effective. So it's not like we weren't well served as a country by them working together, but there was something there, right? So anyways, a combination of apparently those two things. And I doubt it was so much the Corey Lewandowski issue, but she has moved on to the, what is it called here? It's a new initiative. It's the Shield of America. So a lot of people are saying she's fired. The reality is that Shield of America program, we'll see how it all lays out, but it's kind of an upgrade.
That's what it sounds like to me. So, and this is why I was asking, because yesterday I was still sick and slept most of the day. So I missed what was happening. And then my wife said, what's going on with Kristi Noem? And I was like, and then when I saw it and was like, is Trump mad at her and getting rid of her? What's going on? I had no idea.
I'll say this. Kristi Noem is the best Department of Homeland Security secretary we have ever had. And it's not even close. It's not even close.
Well, that's what it seemed like to me. And that's why I was really confused for a second.
She closed the border. Now, there's another little hitch in this, and I want our audience to hear this. Markwayne Mullins, though he said Trump didn't win 2020, and he hugged Michael Byrd and said that he killed a terrorist, right? He did some of that. He was a new senator, whatever. I don't like it. But he was briefed by Gary Bernstein, the Patrick Byrne crowd, and Elon Musk about the election fraud. And it is Markwayne Mullins that got the appropriate people in the military involved that fried that server in Serbia that allowed us to have a relatively, not fair. I hate to say 2024 was fair, right? Wow. But we had an election where Trump won, and Markwayne Mullins was instrumental in that. What department does CISA, Cyber Infrastructure Security Administration, fall under? DHS. So now Markwayne Mullins, who understands the cyber fraud and the election integrity fraud, is now going to be run DHS, and CISA will answer to him. That is probably why he got the appointment. Not because he's got some border experience or his Native American blood makes him more qualified. No, it's probably because he's one of only a handful of people that actually understands, comprehends, and is in on the side of election integrity and the people running their government. I think it's a great upgrade. I had no problem with Kristi Noem continuing to serve. As far as I'm concerned, if Trump doesn't fire anybody in his cabinet, all the better. There's certain ones that I'm really concerned. Like I don't love the lack of things that have been happening under Pam Bondi, but at the same time, don't fire her. Because it's like we fired Jeff Sessions and we got Bill Barr. Arguably worse. Okay? Arguably worse. Now, this Western Hemisphere shield of whatever type it is, John Attakas says same type of ads she did while governor. They were very successful. Yeah, they're very effective ads. I mean, and she's very photogenic. I mean, yeah, enough Botox lip filler and makeup and pew. So anyways, yes. So this is Doug Burgum down in Venezuela. Now, 6 weeks ago, Venezuela was a narco state. 6 weeks ago, Venezuela was one of the centers of terror in the Western Hemisphere. 6 weeks ago, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranians were vacationing in Venezuela's equivalent of Palm Beach. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now we have this.
Kudos to President Trump. We wouldn't be here right now having these discussions without President Trump's bold, decisive, and creative, courageous leadership back on January 3rd. That was game changing. There's a sense of optimism and hope among the Venezuelan people that they have an opportunity to get back to where they were before with a strong economy. I mean, understand, 25 years ago, their economy was almost 4 times larger than it is today. They see that they have a chance to get back in that game thanks to President Trump. And what that means relative to global oil prices. Again, brilliant strategic move by President Trump to do this first before Iran, because this is an opportunity for.
Oh, wait. So they're connected? They're not just independent problems that they were solving, that they're leading to a final destination? Oh, that's interesting. I can't believe he let that slip.
For oil and gas.
I bet the Democrats are big mad. Big mad. You're pulling on the threads of the sweater. Where's it going to go? The whole thing's
flow to the U.S. and to flow to the world, help keep those prices down, make sure things are affordable in America. President Trump understands you can't separate energy from the economy and you can't separate it from national security, and he's delivering on both fronts.
Great.
Yes.
Venezuela, 6 weeks ago, you had the panicans. Oh, no, we're going to another war. We're going to boots on the ground in Venezuela. Turns out, Dulce Rodriguez, the butcher, is like, thank you, Donald Trump. We are very happy to have business and open new we've now opening diplomatic relations. I mean, it's like, wow. Wow, what a change. 6 weeks ago, I couldn't have imagined that we'd be sitting here today with Doug Burgum just standing on a tarmac, a United States cabinet secretary with Flavella in the background, and there wasn't a sniper bullet fired his way. Okay? This is really an incredible thing. Yesterday, Pete Hegseth had generals from all over the Western Hemisphere come up to Washington, D.C., in the Pentagon specifically, and they started a new initiative. This is a big deal. And I think this is where Kristi Noem is going.
President Trump has shown what is possible when you reject the status quo delusion that threats to our homeland and our hemisphere are somehow secondary. America is prepared to take on these threats and go on the offense alone if necessary. However, it is our preference and it is the goal.
Did you hear that? If you don't play, discombobulator for you. Because why? Because we're not playing anymore.
Yeah, we'll just go alone.
We'll go alone if we have to. That right there is a slap to the face to every neocon who's like, we have to have these multilateral things and we have to sacrifice our needs for the needs of Sweden and Bahrain.
What does the UN think?
Yeah, what does the UN think? Nope. This is a problem. You're killing Americans on our streets and it's coming from somewhere down here. We'll do it alone if we have to.
And it is the goal of this conference that in the interest of this neighborhood, we all do it together with you, with our neighbors and with our allies who are eager and willing and capable. To do this, to work together, we must first acknowledge what was lost and then understand what needs to be restored. All the nations represented in this room are offsprings of Western civilization. Our nations are and always will be united by our heritage, our history, and geography in this new world. We share the same interests. And because of this, we face an essential test. Whether our nations will be and remain Western nations with distinct characteristics, Christian nations under God. Proud of our shared heritage with strong borders and prosperous people ruled not by violence and chaos, but by law, order, and common sense.
Seems like that makes sense to me, but this is kind of a shot across the bow because the Western Hemisphere has kind of been running amok with drug cartels and stuff like that. In this same conference, Stephen Miller addressed these nations, and this is absolute fire. Absolute fire.
There's been a paradigm shift under President Trump in the Western Hemisphere.
That's how I listen to things.
Micro machines.
You know, it's funny because sometimes I'll be doing my show prep and I'll get on like a Zoom while I'm waiting for everybody to pull on, and people will hear this and they're like, what are you listening to? I'm like, can't you understand it? Oh, my wife always complains she can't understand it when I listen to things.
It's the Micro Machines sort of commercials.
I listen to everything at 2 times speed. It's actually kind of sometimes painful for me to sit here and listen to it while we watch it. All right, here's Stephen Miller. This is absolutely fire.
There's been a paradigm shift under President Trump in the Western Hemisphere in the last 14 months. Some of that was touched on by the earlier speakers, but just to restate it, we are not going to cede an inch of territory in this hemisphere to our enemies or our adversaries. Our national security.
Do you remember when J.D. Vance, when Trinidad Agua took over some apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, and J.D. Vance was on TV with Martha? I can't remember her last name, but and he's like, she's like, well, JD, it's only a couple apartments. He's like, how many apartments is it acceptable for a foreign gang to take over? He's like, maybe a whole town, you know, and it's like, do you hear yourself, Martha? No, we're not going to cede
Was that like Martha Raddatz?
Of territory. Huh?
Was that Raddatz?
I think so. Yeah. We're not going to cede an inch of territory.
Our national security, our homeland security, the safety and well-being of our people begins at home, begins in our neighborhood, begins in our home region. And for too long, we have allowed foreign enemies, foreign adversaries, and enemy terrorist organizations to control territory and spaces in this hemisphere where they can project power, project threats, and directly threaten the lives of your citizens and our citizens. And so under the leadership of President Trump, we are using hard power, military power, lethal force to protect and defend the American homeland. Not a single one of your nations should tolerate the existence of a single square mile of territory that is under the control of any entity other than the sovereign governments of your country. The idea that we would have in this hemisphere area that are under the physical control of foreign terrorist organizations, paramilitary organizations, is completely unacceptable. The cartels that operate in this hemisphere are the ISIS and the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere and should be treated just as brutally and just as ruthlessly as we treat those organizations. What we have learned after decades of effort is that there is not a criminal justice solution to the cartel problem. There are elements of the problem that require a criminal justice solution, to be sure. But just as we fought Al-Qaeda and fought ISIS with the tip of a very lethal spear, the reason why this is a conference with military leadership and not a conference of lawyers is because these organizations can only be defeated with military power.
That is the key. These organizations can only be defeated with military power. Trying the criminal justice system has been working, but what did Bukele learn? The judges became corrupt. And if the judges and the lawyers guilds are corrupt, you got no chance.
Well, then the neighbors of these apartment complexes can't just go over there and say, hey, can you guys leave?
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example of what happens when law and order breaks down and attorneys look at this. So here is an attorney and he's testifying House Workforce Labor Economy, and he's a politician, but starts out as an attorney. And this is what he says about organized theft rings. Okay. So this is why when you have attorneys involved in trying to clean up crime, like officially, like they're the tip of the spear, we're just going to let the judicial system play out. They talk about crap like this.
Several of us are on the Public Safety Committee, and yesterday there was a presentation of a group seeking to change how we address organized retail theft. And it actually had not occurred to me to ask, it probably would have been good, to make sure that they would study sort of the benefit of shoplifting and of retail theft. And because perhaps people are relying on that and sort of using that, maybe it's, assisting them in some way. I mean, these folks were describing people violating the law, but I suppose it could be useful to look into that. But ultimately, it's a policy question, right? We do want to make sure when we have a law in place, we're enforcing it. So
we're just going to see if it's actually really a bad thing to let foreign gangs take over apartments or control favelas or do organized crime thefts, because they might need it.
There might be some pros that we need to think about and consider.
Yeah, and then politicians like that go to endorse judges like this, Ron.
Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez became the first openly gay judge to be elected in Bexar County. Within months of taking the bench, a complaint was made by a local defense attorney to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct.
Does anything in this picture look wrong to you? Does anything in this picture to look wrong to people?
Well, look at the flags.
Oh, the flag! I didn't realize that the LGBT flag had a spot next to the American flag.
Weird.
I didn't know they did that. Well, okay.
About the rainbow pride flag she had in her courtroom.
It came across very much like I was being targeted and discriminated against.
And it wasn't just the rainbow pride flag that she was forced to remove.
I was also ordered to remove all rainbows from the courtroom. My mouse pad, the pen that I used, the robe where I had a Sadape colors.
Gonzalez states her disappointment is also because other judges across the state have not been required to remove flags or different color robes from their courtrooms.
Are they going to go to these judges who have an Irish flag in their courtroom or wear a camouflage robe when they want to, or make sure that out in the rural counties there isn't a Confederate flag flying in some little JP court?
Do you think there are Confederate flags flying in any courtrooms?
I haven't seen one yet.
It's just a rural county. They just let the Confederate. No, I'm sorry, not happening.
Since made an appeal on the ruling and is awaiting to get her day in court, which can come later this year. And
every
as
damn
she
day.
waits, she's making sure to continue to be a leading advocate for the LGBTQ plus community any way she can.
It's become a year-round type of approach to life, to live authentically and to live out loud.
The State Commission on Judicial Conduct does not comment on pending litigation. An appellate court of 3 justices is expected to preside over this hearing in Austin.
Okay. So
Sometimes the saturation of what we watch, it feels like I'm in an Onion episode.
Dude, I have a brother-in-law who always says truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, because it really is. I mean, when I see that, the first thing that comes to mind is this.
Morning, Chill.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay. We bring you in the studio this morning.
Why are you gay? Man, if I was gay, I would definitely want to have my case tried by her because she is totally going to be an advocate for you. Loud and proud. Oh my gosh.
Living out loud.
We need to turn. It was Martha McCallum, by the way, not Martha Ritz. Thank you, Pray the Rosary Daily. Carlitos, we need to turn Cuba into a commonwealth like PR. Just clean up the corruption because PR is corrupt as Minnesota, if not worse. Carlitos, it's all corrupt, buddy. It's all corrupt.
It's all equal.
Yeah, it's all corrupt. This is like such an interesting deal here. You know what I mean? Like, Stephen Miller, I give you permission to ignore your lawyers. Okay. Listen, if the lawyers can't come up with solutions, I guess Q was right. The military is the only way. So Pete Hegseth signed this agreement between these nations. Now, notably missing from this were Colombia, Brazil, and Mexico. So every other Western nation except for Cuba came in and participated in this, but Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico did not attend.
Okay.
We'll jump to it.
I'm the only one that needed to sign because everyone else already has. So here you have it. Affirming our relationships, respecting sovereignty, recognizing the strategic importance of this hemisphere, and declaring our intent to expand multilateral and bilateral cooperation to enhance security in the hemisphere, to cooperate on whole of government efforts on border security, countering narco-terrorism and trafficking, securing critical infrastructure, and other areas to be determined, advancing peace through strength, as was so eloquently said by so many speakers here. It means something to address future threats to our mutual interest and join together to combat narco-terrorism and other shared threats in the Western Hemisphere. Signed March 5th, the year of our Lord 2026, in English and Spanish. How about that?
Wow.
It feels like we're climbing a really precarious peak with the best view in the world. But to get to the very top, we have to walk up a cliff's edge. And if we take one step off, we're doomed. But if we maintain our course, we will get to that beautiful future ahead. Right. And that's really how it feels. They're threading a needle here. You've got all kinds of stakeholders, oil, tech, cartels, drugs, human trafficking, banking, insurance, right? All these things. And Trump has got some massive whiteboard, probably the size of this wall in front of us, and he's got them all tied together. And there's a thread, a needle that you have to thread to get through all this. Venezuela, Iran, probably loop back around and take care of Mexico. Sounds like we're dealing with some stuff in Ecuador, and then probably Colombia, and then we're probably going to hit Cuba, and then you know what I mean? Listen, you either work with us or we'll just do it ourselves.
I do like this because it helps the public understand who the players are.
Yeah, it does. It helps the public understand who the players are. Now, there is tons of people who just don't see the big picture, right? Our inception of all this starts around the election, right? That's the most important issue to me, and it should be to you. And if it's not, then we'll debate about it, and I'll explain to you how it's important to you. Okay? If we are going to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, then elections matter. If you want to advocate for monarchy, okay, whatever. You know what I mean?
Then the people don't matter.
Go live in Britain. Okay? But go back home. De-immigrate, okay? But if you're an American in the Western Hemisphere, there's no kings. Okay, there's no kings. It is of the people, by the people, for the people. We have to run this place.
Yeah, I like that when the No Kings protests come out. I was like, well, I kind of agree with that a little bit.
Yeah, but I kind of wish Trump would be a little more kingly and just come arrest you guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of like the king in Britain, 13,000 people going to prison for social media posts. By the way, you want to know something I found out that was really interesting?
Yeah.
I saw this chart about the Soviet Union. Okay, so I found two things. I found out when I got involved in the criminal justice system that they have like a 98.2% conviction rate. Okay, that's really high.
Wow.
Well, the State Department, you can go read these press releases back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when the Soviet Union was having all these star chambers and stuff like that. And they were basically saying their judicial system was super corrupt because they had like 60 and 70% conviction rates.
Hold my beer.
If you get involved in the criminal justice system, straight to jail. The rest is just performative. You know what I mean? So anyways, that's kind of the same thing with the freedom of speech. In England, they've arrested like 13,000 people in the last year. And Russia, at the height of its censorship crackdowns, it was like 238 people. You know, and we were like, oh my gosh, they don't believe in free speech. They have 90 million people at the time in that country.
Yeah,
and Britain's
obviously
got like
they don't
30
care.
million. Yeah. All right, so Matt Gaetz had someone on the show talking about the narco terrorists. They're running out of places to run, and Ecuador is the first narco state to flip.
Venezuela changing. We see this effort in Ecuador, and it begs the question, are narcos running out of permissive environments right now in the Western Hemisphere? And if so, where do we expect they might concentrate power?
Well, you know, the problem is failed states such as Haiti at times where could be hosts for these groups that are running out of places, as you said, to hide. We saw in Mexico, we've gone against the cartels there. A very bold move by the administration working with the Mexican government. There's no place for them in Ecuador. We're chasing them out. In Venezuela, we have obviously seen what's happened there. We had a narco-terrorist president who's been extracted and is behind bars where he belongs. And so, you know, they really are running out of places to go and hide. And you know, we're coming after them.
Yeah. So they might be hiding in your neighborhood soon. That's the cliff's edge. Okay. Pete Hegseth goes on to say, it was asked about the activity in Iran, and they said, hey, are we going to be taking refugees? Because historically, every time we have a, you know, non-war war intervention, we end up taking refugees. And it's like we just invite these people back into our home and they bite us in the butt.
One common outcome of American military action in the past has been taking in thousands of refugees into the American homeland. And I'm wondering if there's any safeguards put in place to make sure that the American people aren't having to have another wave of refugees from the Middle East or anywhere else come and stay here.
I think it's safe to say there's no plan for a wave of new Middle Eastern refugees to the United States of America. I think, as the president has pointed out for a long time, there are a lot of countries in the region who would be capable of providing that kind of support if need be. But that's certainly not something we're planning on.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir. Michael.
That's good. Well, I like to hear that.
I'll take
now, the
it.
question is Iran even going to produce refugees? So we're 6 days into this military intervention, right? This what I can't. What did Anna Paulina Luna want to call it?
I don't know. We can call it a war if you want.
Strategic military strikes or something. There's, some bullshit phrase to basically say, yeah, we're at war, but we didn't get a declaration of it, right?
Right.
Okay, so CNN made their way into Iran. They wanted to see the chaos and destruction. And remember what I've said. I've said a lot of times these huge catastrophic events, they happen in these isolated little bubbles. Not always, but oftentimes it does. Like, the journalist that was trying to cover the Egyptian revolution, and he was sipping his morning coffee while 6 blocks away, the palace was being overrun, people were being slaughtered, and he's just
didn't even know it was happening.
Reading yesterday's news in the paper, right? And that happens to us all the time. Like you mentioned, 9/11. Oh my gosh, they just hit the World Trade Centers. Oh, I've got an engineering thing. I got to get some plans. It's like, dude, the world just stopped, and we just go about our business. That's how it is. So CNN made it into Iran, and they expected chaos. They expected riots, and instead,
taking a quick break for a coffee along the way. We've been driving for several hours. There's a couple of things that we've noticed. Number one is that, first of all the shops are open. All the shops are really well stocked, even with fresh things, like, for instance, fruits and vegetables. Coffee, obviously, also available as well. And then also the gas stations. There's no long lines as gas stations. Fuel seems readily available, and you just don't see any sort of degree of panic anywhere. Taking a quick
Texas.
Could that be,
Looks like Texas.
Looks like Texas, yeah. Could that be there's no panic because the strategic strikes are just taking out the horrible dictatorship and leadership? And the rest of Iran's like, well, this has been bad.
Gotta go to work.
Yeah, gotta go to work with my totally devalued dollars, totally devalued money. There's a Iranian United States citizen who has worked for the country of Iran in the past, who was on CNN last night on this panel. And, they're talking about Iran and all the panic and, Trump's, this isn't a war. And they're talking about the War Powers Act. And this guy says something that we as Americans sometimes forget, right? It takes two to tango. Okay. It takes two to tango. But if one party knows that they're at the dance and the other party doesn't know, you know what I'm saying? So here's this panel.
2 days ago, yesterday, this morning, I was told we were not at war. Today in the press conference, PKSF says, end the war. Are we at war? Are we not at war? Do we want regime change or do we not?
The president told the Iranian people in his very first
moment.
I know this may sound controversial, and among my friends, some of them is controversial.
That's okay.
But I think that a lot of commentary is missing, perhaps, the big picture.
I agree.
And there is a big picture here. And perhaps to simplify it, I would put it this way. I don't think it's right to say that President Trump has started a war with Iran. I think President Trump wants to finish a war that Iran started in 1979, 47 years ago.
Bingo.
And these aren't just words. Let me just tell you an anecdote. In the 2003, 2004, when I was there in Iran working on projects at a very high level, I was talking with deputy ministers, I was talking with going back and forth, and I was in the foreign ministry in Tehran, where I met someone who was very senior, and he was semi-sympathetic with the projects we were doing. But as I was leaving, he looked me in the eye and he said, you as an Iranian American, I want you to know something and listen very carefully. He said, we in this building, what he meant is the foreign ministry, which meant representing the government, which means representing the regime. He said, we believe we are at war with the United States. He said at that time, it's a Cold War, but it's a war nonetheless. This was a war.
They just can't take it.
I
They just
know.
can't take it.
I know.
Al Qaeda was at war with us long before we were at war with them. Right? This is Iran's been at war with us since the moment they took our hostages and wouldn't give them back. Right? This is the thing. We as Americans project our virtue. We just want to go out of business, raise our families, just be good little peasants. Okay? And we don't recognize that there are people in the world, there are ideologies, religious beliefs, cults, all kinds of stuff that hate people that are at peace. They hate people that act independently and can't be told what to do. There's certain personality types that become sociopathic and just rise up through the ranks. This happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this happens. People that thirst for power.
It seems like the psychopaths rise to the top just like cream. They're just whoop, right up there.
Yeah. And so Iran has been at war with us. We are antithetical to their way of life, that specific brand of Islam that is just backwards.
It's hard for us to understand.
It's hard for us to understand. I saw this image yesterday that was taken, and I didn't want to pull it up because it just makes you feel sick. But it's a child, a young child, standing next to an old man at a market, and she's like 8 months pregnant. She can't be more than 10 or 11 years old. And that's his wife. And they're walking around like it's totally okay. And this girl's just dead in the eyes. You know what I mean? Like, we cannot comprehend that culture because you'd go to jail.
Well, in America you would, but over there, nobody even bats an eye.
They don't even bat an eye.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we can't, they've been at war with us. You can't project our goodness onto them. And here's the thing. The internet is full of bots and full of trolls and full of all kinds of stuff.
And confusion.
So Laura Loomer, you know, again, we don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to the pundits out there and all their little fighting, right? Laura Loomer, she's a Jew. Okay. She's loud and proud, just like that judge was loud and proud with pride. Okay? But she's a Jew. She's wildly loyal to Donald Trump. For over 2 years now, I've been telling everyone that the influencers are being paid by Islamic countries with Islamic money. Now, the accusation was that the Jews have been paying people. They have been. Okay. I always said that the claim that pro-Israel and anti-Hamas accounts were being paid $7,000 was just projection and made up lies by people who actually have been given $7,000 by bad actors. FEC records reveal that Representative Thomas Massey, who has been spreading the lie that pro-Israel accounts are paid $7,000 per post, has actually been receiving donations of $7,000 from Muslim donors. This explains why Massey appears to be pro-Iran and why he wants to limit President Trump's ability to carry out strikes in Iran. Another purveyor of the $7,000 lie used to attack Jews is Trita Parsi, the founder of NIAC, that's the Iranian group, and the founder of the Quincy Institute, who keeps appearing on Bannon's War Room. Parsi and NIAC have been accused of lobbying for the Iranian regime and serving as a mouthpiece for the Ayatollah in D.C. In 2020, multiple U.S. senators, including Senator Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz, called on the DOJ to investigate NIAC for allegedly lobbying for the Iranian regime. Recently, Paris's Quincy Institute gave Thomas Massey an award. We covered this a couple days ago. Before the Ayatollah was killed in an airstrike ordered by President Trump, one of the last tweets posted by the Ayatollah was the false claim that President Trump was looking to strike Iran because of the Epstein files. This is the same line used by Massey, who just yesterday brought a vote to the floor of the House to try to limit President Trump's war powers. The House GOP overwhelmingly voted of support of Trump in Massey's resolution, ultimately failed after 4 Democrats crossed the aisle to vote against Massey's resolution on the side of America. It appears that Massey is now a mouthpiece for Islamic and Iranian interests, which is why supporters of the terrorist Iranian Islamic regime are giving him $7,000 payments and rewards. The woke Reich is an Islamic movement founded by Islamic money. I've been saying this ever since October 7th. Every day am I more vindicated. Mike Johnson, Thomas Massey, and Trita Parsi should both be investigated. So here's where it's at. So when you go into Thomas Massey's little, Thomas Massey's for Congress, you can make a $20, $50, $100, $250, $500, wow, $1,000, $3,000, $7,000 donations. These are the click now, pay now buttons. So then there's him getting his award at the Quincy Institute. Here's his campaign post. Zaid Marquardt, $7,000. Sam Marquardt, $7,000. Raheem Marquardt. Is this a family? $7,000. So we're 21, 28, 28,000, 35,000, 33,000, 36,000.
Maybe those are all his kids.
All the same last name.
Yeah.
All the same last name. This is big money. This is big money. Okay. Israel.
Well, ounces add up to pounds.
But yet these guys are saying Israel is paying influencers $7,000 per post, which, by the way, I think is happening too. Okay? But that's what's going on here. And how do they amplify this? So what happens is you get a post, a panicking post, an anti-Israel, anti-Iran, anti-whatever the agenda is post. And then they have these bot farms. Look at these. That wasn't what I was supposed to click. They have these bot farms. They go out. Federal Commission delays vote on Trump's White House ballroom project. Why? Because 70% of the comments against Trump's ballroom were coming from bot farms. this. So what happens is Thomas Massey or anybody that's in this network will put out a tweet, and what instantaneously happens is all of these different accounts run by these little shell things, right? And look, they have all these cell phones to create unique identifiers. They're all running in unison, and that's how you put out a tweet. And then minutes later, there's 10,000 likes, and now you're trending. This is the manipulation of the algorithm that you get sucked into.
If we were smart, we would have done this a long time ago for our channel.
That's why we're only rolling with 19 people live.
Dang
I mean,
it.
if somebody knows any of these bot farms, I'll take a couple likes. You know what I mean? I have to rely on you guys. We got 19 people on Rumble listening. Repost the show, like the show, because that's what we're up against.
Growing a show organically is the hardest thing to
show
do.
The picture on the screen. Okay, show the picture on the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Picture and picture me if you can.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, picture and picture me if you can. This is what we're up against. This is why we, the peasants, rely on you. I have zero intention on paying for exposure. None. I don't want it. I want quality listeners, you know, the people that show up and rush in line to say good morning, peasants, at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday.
Right. Because
This is what we're up against. If we want to take back our country, you have to learn to ignore this shit. You have to learn to go to sources that you trust, people that you spend enough time with to trust their opinion. I still listen to Tucker Carlson, even though I disagree with him at the moment, because I do believe he's a truth seeker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm going to agree with every opinion, but I'm definitely not going to be influenced by a bunch of bot accounts that are like, oh, look, he got ratioed, or, oh, look, this policy's bad because all these people didn't like it. You can't trust anything that's happening online. That's why I don't care how many people like my posts or anything like that. I want you, the listeners, to do that. I love it when I see the same people liking my posts or the same people showing up for the show because you're real. Fab Letty, new person, welcome. I don't recognize the name. Not a bot here. Okay, awesome. That's wonderful. I love it. So this is the thing, right? A lot of our politics are being manipulated. What really matters? What's really happening out there? And that's why we play so many clips. I want to go to the source. So CNN is in Israel, is in Iran, and they're like, hey, on the ground, like most of the life is just going on. If you're not hiding out in a bunker with other regime members, you're probably safe. Okay. I mean, the Chinese guys were still up there building the building as it got hit, right? So Donald Trump extended out an olive branch to the Iranian police and military and everybody else. He said, lay down your arms and you'll have total immunity. If not, you will die.
And I'm once again calling on all members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the military and the police to lay down their arms. They're only going to be killed. And now is the time to stand up for the Iranian people and help take back your country. You're going to have a chance after all these years to take back your country. Accept immunity. We'll give you immunity. And we'll be giving you really the right side of history, because that's what it is. So you'll be perfectly safe with total immunity, or you'll face absolutely guaranteed death. And I don't want to see that. They don't want to see it either. We also urge Iranian diplomats around the world to request asylum and to help us shape a new and better.
So all of a sudden, if you're an Iranian who's been working for the Iranian regime, you have a choice. You can choose immunity and freedom and work towards peace, law and order, and universal tranquility, or you can die. Because this is a zero-sum game. We are moving into a new world with AI, with the ability for mass surveillance, and we cannot allow us to be forced to use those tools to go after you. You've got to be done now.
I think everybody has to agree that the consequences of laying down your arms and having peace are pretty good.
Yeah. It seems like a good option.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like a good option. A lot of people won't take it, unfortunately. And it sounds like they'll be hunted down to the ends of the earth. Because not only are we dealing with it out of Iran, you definitely got no safe quarter in our hemisphere. We'll talk about Canada in a minute. So the next thing here is Pete Hegseth is like, a lot of the panicans and a lot of the pundits are like, the military's going to run out of missiles. Oh, they can't do it. They don't have the strength. Pete Hegseth putting that to bed.
Iran is hoping that we cannot sustain this, which is a really bad miscalculation for the IRGC in Iran. You see, there's no shortage of American will here.
We remember and honor our fallen, those 6 that we will soon welcome at Dover, who gave everything for their country in this mission. We remember them. But we remember them by rededicating ourselves even more fervently to this mission. Our commitment to our mission objectives only increases as our advantages continue to increase. We've got no shortage of munitions. Our stockpiles of defensive and offensive weapons allow us to sustain this campaign as long as we need to. Again, our munition status only increases as our advantage increases. Our capabilities, we have only just begun to fight and fight decisively. Having a chance to hear from Admiral Cooper. If you think you've seen something, just wait. The amount of combat power that's still flowing, that's still coming, that we'll be able to project over Iran is a multiples of what it currently is right now when you add up our capabilities and those of the Israeli Defense Forces.
Even Pakistan and Azerbaijan have now mobilized forces into Iran. Okay. Iran's done. The existing Ayatollah regime, they're done. It's just a matter of time. I don't know how long it's going to take. Right.
Pakistan is moving into Iran.
Yeah.
Would they have done that without a United States action? I don't think so.
No way.
So obviously they feel confident moving forward.
Yeah, they're like, we want to be on the winning side of this.
Right.
And that's Azerbaijan, Lebanon. Lebanon, the president of Lebanon put on a general's uniform yesterday, gave a big speech and told Hezbollah they have no quarter in Iran, in Lebanon anymore.
And the reason I said that is because people in this country need to understand that the people over there know what time it is.
Yes, they do. In fact, well, let's play this. This is John Kirkorow. He was on with Jesse Waters addressing the Kurds going into Iran.
Okay.
Now, I'd be really sad if I see American boots on the ground, but I'm okay with everybody else wants to put boots on the ground, right? It's not my problem. I say that jokingly. Hopefully, the regime will lay down their arms and sue for peace, right? Because
we
that
say
would
a lot
be
of
ideal
things jokingly.
for them.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. But one of the things that they have made absolutely positive is every missile launcher, every boat, everything is going to be done. You're going to be a nation. And then we're going to back off and let you do your thing. But you're going to have no ability to project power. Go ahead and rebuild. Do what you're going to do. But you're not going to be able to project power. You got a 10-year pause button on being an aggressor in the neighborhood. So the Kurds going in and fighting.
Do you think the Kurdish play is a distinct possibility?
Oh, I would say the chances are 100%. The Kurds have long worked with the United States. They are brave fighters, pro-American. We've worked with them very closely in the past against Saddam Hussein. We worked with them in Syria against Bashar al-Assad. This is a logical next step.
Okay, there they are doing cartwheels over fire. That's interesting training technique. I've never seen anybody do that before. But in all seriousness, what would be the strategy once they cross the border? To draw the Iranian units out, to go straight to the capital? Is it a decoy? Is it security? What would their role be?
I think it's probably the first. They likely couldn't make it all the way to Tehran without significant assistance from the United States. But I don't think that would be the goal. I think the goal would be to capture areas that historically have been Iranian Kurdistan and to draw the Revolutionary Guard out so that they would be that much easier to strike.
Do you see other ethnic groups move into Iran proper? We're hearing Azerbaijan got hit, and they got some hardcore fellas that have been licking their chops to go south for quite some time.
They do. And, you know, one thing most people don't know, I think.
If I were the Kurds, I would not let these training videos out, man. I've done more difficult, obstacle courses at Boy Scout camp. I'm just saying, they're a vicious fighting force. But what that means is they'll kill you dead. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're good at what they do.
Is that there's the country of Azerbaijan, and then there's an Iranian province of Azerbaijan, and they're, of course, ethnically closely related.
No wonder it took us so long to win in Iraq. We were relying on that nonsense. The Kurds. Oh, my God.
I can't even hear what they're talking about.
Were really, really angry when when this strike came their way yesterday, I guess it was. And I think that they would be very happy to work with the United States on this.
Oh my goodness. They got the worst B-roll footage you could possibly get.
What were they talking about? I was just laughing so hard.
They were talking about the Kurds being the fighting boots on the ground to draw out the Iranian fighters. When we saw the women training, we said, what did we say? Fodder. This looks like fodder. Okay. Yeah. That training camp of deadly Kurdish strike forces playing leapfrog. Fodder. Okay. Fodder. Unfortunately. Oh, I feel so horrible saying that because they fight alongside us, right?
No.
Okay. So mentioning Lebanon and Hezbollah, this is an old video, and this is a woman from Lebanon who talks about how Lebanon went from being a Christian country to being an Islamic country in a very quick period of time. And this goes along with the whole projecting our virtue onto people.
I was born and raised in Lebanon, which used to be the only majority Christian country in the Middle East. We were open-minded, we were fair, we were tolerant, we were multicultural. We prided ourselves in our multiculturalism. We had open border policy. We welcomed everyone to come to our country because we wanted to share with them the westernization which we had created in the heart of the Arabic world. Muslims used to send their children to study in our universities because we had built the best universities in the Arabic world. They graduated and worked in our economy because we had built the best economy in the Middle East, even though we did not have any oil. Beirut became Paris of the Middle East, the banking capital of the Middle East. In 1965, National Geographic magazine had on its front cover, Lebanon, Eden of the Middle East. Unfortunately, all this began to change as the years went by. See, we got our independence in the early 40s. But by the 60s and 70s, the Christians had become the minority and the Muslims had become the majority in Lebanon. And as the Islamic population grew in the country became less and less tolerant because they started pushing for more rights that were not compatible with our Judeo-Christian value system that we had created. And that's when the problems started. The problem was contained until the influx of the Palestinians out of Jordan in 1970, when Lebanon brought them in because we already had refugee camps. Actually, at that time, Lebanon was the only country in the Middle East to accept the third wave of Palestinians into Lebanon. The majority of them were Muslims. They put their heads together with the Muslims in Lebanon and declare jihad on the Christians. What they wanted to do is create a base from which to fight Israel, kill the Jews, and throw them into the sea. Something they tried to do in Jordan. Yasser Arafat and the Palestinians tried to do in Jordan, but they failed because of the dictatorship of the king. Yet they were able to come to Lebanon, use our open-mindedness, our fairness, our tolerance, our multiculturalism, and our democracy to topple our democracy.
And who runs an open society, a democracy, the rule of law? And who's in charge of the law? Lawyers and judges. And Stephen Miller just gave the Western Hemisphere permission to ignore those lawyers and judges who want to slow down taking back your country, actually having law and order, and actually having a prosperous society, right? That is the weakness of an open society. It's interesting that George Soros calls his thing the Open Societies Foundation and then takes advantage of those open societies, right? That's the disadvantage. It's the projecting your virtue. If you don't have a homogenous country where people have a similar core value system, like this is why it's important as a Christian nation, because we have 10 commandments. Don't steal. It's always wrong. But what if I'm hungry? And what if it's a way I feed my family? The attorney in Minnesota,
right.
Don't steal. Don't steal. It's never okay to steal. You know what I mean? like having a compass, a moral compass, a simple framework by which to see the world that we have in common is core. But when you disrupt that framework and you import people with completely opposite ideologies, Islam, Saudi Arabia, they're westernizing. They're an Islam monarchy. Let them do it. God put their feet on that plant, on that piece of land. That's their business, right? But in the Western Hemisphere, this has been a free hemisphere, no kings, for how long? 150, 200 years? Really since our inception, right? Since colonization, so to speak.
Yeah,
and even, you know what I
250.
mean? So it's like, it's oil and water. We can't mix. Oil has its place, water has its place, but you can't mix. Ecuador, I mentioned this before, they've picked a side. They picked a side, and thank goodness.
Ecuador just sent a message to Havana that was short, brutal, and came with a 48-hour expiration date. In a move that caught the entire region off guard, President Daniel Noboa didn't just ask the Cuban ambassador to leave, he expelled the entire embassy staff. No explanation, no diplomatic fluff, just a persona non grata stamp and a 2-day window to pack their bags. While the world watches its head, the imagery on the ground tells the real story. Cuban officials were spotted on the roof of their Quito embassy frantically burning bags of documents as security forces patrol the perimeter. So why on earth would Ecuador do this right now? It isn't a mystery if you're tracking the flight paths between Quito and Washington. This expulsion happened at the exact moment joint US-Ecuador military operations kicked off. Now, Ecuador is making a high-stakes bet that being the ultimate team player for the Trump administration is the only way to keep his own country off the target list. The strategy here is preemptive loyalty. Noboa knows the Cuba's next buzz in DC isn't just talk. By clearing out the Cuban intelligence hub in his own capital, he's effectively handing over the keys to the regional security room. He's showing the White House that Ecuador isn't just a partner in the drug war, they're a frontline ally in the effort to topple the regime in Havana. Critics are calling it a shakedown, but for Noboa, it's survival. With the US already strangling Cuba's oil and hinting at an economic management takeover, Ecuador decided that being the first to flip is better than being the next to fall. While the Cuban diplomats are scurrying to the airport, the rest of Latin America is watching closely. Noboa just proved that in 2026 there is no middle ground. You're either helping the US redraw the map, or you're part of the territory that's about to be replaced.
It's a zero-sum game. It's a zero-sum game. So that's pretty interesting. Watching the AI video.
Yeah.
Funny. That lady could not get her papers to start burning in that barrel.
Man, that dude was chucking them in there. Bam, bam, bam.
Okay. On a side note, side quest funny thing, yesterday I saw a cute little clip that was a mother whose children wouldn't clean up their room. And so she went and took some video footage of the room, and then she created an AI newscast and had her kids on the couch, and she turned on the news, and it was breaking, Simon and Peter's room is messy, and there's going to be a task force sent by someone's, if they don't clean up their room by the toys are going to be donated to charity or whatever. And the kids were like, oh, because they're looking at their room on the news, and then they went and cleaned their room. It was really cute. Anyways.
That is funny.
AI is incredible. Okay. So the chessboard, right? How's the international chessboard? We know that China is ultimately kind of our major opposition.
Yeah, and all these actions that we've been seeing are meant to really hem them in. I mean, all this oil that we're attacking and taking control of.
Yeah, there was an analysis done when we invaded Kuwait and pushed Iraq back out of Kuwait. The China sent huge delegations to Kuwait to watch the conflict, just to observe as observers. And we were happy to have them because at the time, this is 89. This is after Tiananmen Square. George H.W. Bush was like, you guys need to westernize, right? And so we invited them to come watch. And when they came back, and we now know all this because these documents have been leaked and stuff like this, they call us the great devils, the foreign devils. And they said, we can't beat the foreign devils on the battlefield.
Well, that's why it's been like an economic war ever since.
Well, they declared a people's war, an all-out war after this. And they said, we can't defeat them on the battlefield outright. Right. They're too far advanced technology wise. They have too much will when it comes to the fight. Right. And so they initiated an intentional plan to weaken the United States. And they think long term. Okay. They think in terms of dynasties. They don't think in terms of even lifetimes. And so they started to weaken us economically through our trade deals. They got introduced into the WTO. I was here in Seattle when those riots were happening way back in 99 or 2000. 99, 2000, something.
It was 90 something.
Yeah. So I was here for that on a debate trip. Again, world keeps going.
I was just living here.
Yeah. They were introduced into the World Trade Organization and given most favored nation status, which basically meant no tariffs for their goods. that bolstered their economy and it hollowed out our economy. And then, of course, we also had NAFTA, which contributed to that. And
well, yeah. Then we were like, well, let's send all of our jobs over there.
Yeah, and of course, corporate espionage has been off the charts and stuff like that. And it got to the point where really, by the time Trump comes around, we're pretty weak, right? I mean, we're being drained out, and a lot of Americans are living the American nightmare. You know, can't get ahead. I mean, our financial system was completely corrupted, taken advantage of. China's currency manipulating.
And a lot of people are acting like these tariffs were using it like a billy club and we're beating it over their head. It's like, no, that's not exactly it. We're trying to crawl back up to where we're even.
Where we're even. Yeah, we're trying to establish a level of fairness. And so over that period of time, China reached out to Iran, all adversaries, North Korea, eventually Venezuela, Cuba. They all share that communist, socialist, collectivist thread. And so it's like, let's find our ideological mates. And same thing with Islam. Islam is very Marxist, okay? Because they want the jihad. You have to separate the people so you always have an enemy. That's kind of the whole point there, the other. And so they took advantage of that and they infiltrated everywhere and they fed our enemies, narco-terrorists. They're executing drug dealers. Meanwhile, they're shipping fentanyl into Mexico for the drug dealers to make and ship here. You know what I mean? So nothing is on par or has parity or even a similar stance on things. They absolutely declared a people's war, and it's every element of their government and economy is geared towards diminishing the United States' power so they can take a hegemonic position. And they think long term, right? Every empire eventually has their arc, and we're somewhere on the down arc and they're on the up arc, and they want to, as soon as they cross that threshold, they'll knock you down all the way to the bottom. That's how it happens. When we talk about things being a zero-sum game, you either have a trade route or you don't. Okay. So this is the chessboard.
Iran was able to use Chinese technology that they could track very easily who wears a hijab or not because they perfected it in Uyghur camps.
In this episode, I sit down with Zina Berbua, a research fellow at the Hudson Institute, to ask why, as she puts it, the Iran question is all about China.
It is China that has helped Iran acquire different components. Their fingerprints are all over Iran's military arsenal. When it comes to the missiles,
how do we know that we're not going to just get another source of instability?
The United States is destroying everything that would make that possible. Every single launcher, every single missiles facility, their whole navy has been absolutely crushed. You can see that in the loss of military assets that Iran had.
As the U.S. degrades Iran's military assets, what's next for Iran and Beijing?
Beijing has been selling to his own people that America is in decline. The United States has proven them wrong. Trump has proven them wrong.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellogg.
What's really great about being a country of the people, by the people, and for the people is, for the most part, we're going to live and let live. But just like the general in Japan after he bombed Pearl Harbor, he says, I fear I've awakened a sleeping giant. And that's what's happened with the MAGA movement. A sleeping giant has been awakened. There's a huge population in America that understands authoritarianism and dictatorship and reject it entirely. And we've woken up. It's like it matters all of a sudden. MAGA comes out to vote, especially if Trump's on the ballot. Okay. They're not going to vote for a rhino, but they'll vote for Trump. You know what I mean? And they'll be engaged in this activity. Look at the enrollment and the recruiting for the military when Trump's in charge. It goes through the roof. They're hitting their benchmarks, even with 70% of American 18-year-olds not qualifying for military service. It's really impressive.
It's better PR than a Top Gun movie.
And if we can unleash capitalism, you've got guys like Lucky Palmer out there who are like, yeah, I'll redo the defense industrial base on the cheap. Okay? It's awesome. Everything that Trump has done, from Venezuela to Cuba to North Korea in his first term, has been an attempt to roll back the pressure from China and to try to take back trade lanes and economic pinch points. So Fox News, Martha McCallum had on
the Wall Street.
Let's see, she covers a Wall Street Journal article that's talking about this.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that China is now accelerating production of submarines to attack the United States. Closer to home, writing, quote, China has been developing new submarine technology and a bigger, better fleet that is gaining on the United States and its allies. spurring a new undersea arms race in the Pacific. These subs that can strike U.S. from closer to home, the U.S. Navy is warning. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, that is some statement that the Navy has warned us about.
Yes. The Chinese, they don't actually need better submarines. All they need to do is stay close to their shores in what they call the bastion areas, like the Yellow Sea. But obviously, they do want subs to be able to get closer to the U.S. And by the way, we have Chinese submarines in the Arctic, which would be very, very close to Alaska and the homeland. So this is really an important development. And we have got to make sure that we have got the attack subs that can take out those ballistic missile submarines of the Chinese.
And it's incredible. The Hudson Institute has reported that China armed Iran with advanced missiles. Every warhead carries Chinese components. We've reported on this program many times that China sends these components to Iran. The guidance systems, the propellant chemistry. China provided air defense systems to Iran. U.S. and Israeli strikes decimated them, and that China invested $100 billion in Iranian infrastructure. I mean, clearly, China is on the side of Iran with all of this, and then they want to send a Mideast envoy to go condemn the attacks today. How do you see this?
Well, first of all, that envoy is going to try to stop the United States from attacking Iran, and clearly what we should be doing is ignoring this guy. The Chinese are an enemy combatant. That's the way we should treat them. They have been supplying Iran with all the components for their weapons, as you just talked about. Diplomatic support, propaganda support, elevated commodity purchases. Last year, 87.2% of Iran's exports of crude went to China. It's across the board support. And so the United States just needs to say, look, we want to stop this. We have to also impose costs on China.
Yeah. So why have we been buying drones from China for so long? I asked the chairman of the Intelligence Committee this yesterday. Rick Crawford was my special guest. And I want to get your take on this. I know at this point, we've stopped buying Chinese drones from DJI, but there are so many of them already in our arsenal. Here's what he told me yesterday. Watch this. Congressman, what about all of those drones right now in our arsenal that China made?
The drone manufacturing has moved so fast. Heck, I've got companies in my district that were engaged in this 10 years ago, but they were outpaced by the Chinese. They wanted to be able to offer these products to American farmers, but they couldn't keep pace because the technology changed so quick, and they were outfunded. And they had to go a different direction with it. So now we're reliant on these Chinese drones. We can't continue with that type of footing.
Do you believe this operation in Iran is as much about China?
It's a very tenuous relationship. I know that they try to characterize this as an affable relationship, and I get it because personally they may have an exchange that may be favorable. But broadly speaking, the Chinese Communist Party is not our friend. This attack on Iran was not an attack on China, but it most certainly is an impact on China.
Has had an impact already, hasn't it?
Oh, it certainly has.
Oh, yeah. So China, right, is obviously still increasing their undersea submarines, which is really the future of naval warfare. It's not going to be on the surface because hypersonic missiles and there's other considerations now that, when Iran shot a missile straight to space and it came straight down on the Ayatollah, there wasn't any radar that was going to catch that or allow you to do anything about it, right? So our battleships, our aircraft carriers are just sitting ducks in the new age of warfare. There's going to be weapons dropped from space. I mean, you've got the rod of God. Have you heard of that? The tungsten rod that they drop out of a satellite.
Oh, wow.
It hits with the impact of a nuclear weapon with no radiation because it's coming from space. We have that. It's called the rod of God. Okay. It's a tungsten rod that they just drop from a satellite on a pinpoint spot.
So it can make it through the atmosphere without burning up.
Yeah. Now, this is a little bit of a joke, but it's kind of funny. This right here is an Iranian soldier, and we can't, a Ukrainian soldier who's he's putting QR codes. Get this. He's putting QR codes all over his tank. Okay. And he's telling his friend here, it's just kind of funny. He's like, hey, all the Russian drones have Chinese chips in them. So when they come down to attack,
that is funny.
It says when they come down to attack, a Ukrainian soldier put many QR codes on his tank to shield it against Russian drones. His comrade got confused. The soldier explained to him, Russian drones use Chinese chips, which automatically scan Temu QR codes, then start shopping and forget about the war. They even burdened with debt they give up.
Okay, that is funny.
Totally AI. Totally not the solution to
Who came up with
drones,
that as an
but
idea?
it's
That's
pretty
funny.
So in that clip with Maria Bartiromo, they mentioned farmers and farmer drones. Here's what we got going on here. Okay, farmers increasingly are replacing their migrant labor with robot labor. So here is a contraption that goes out and picks apples.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting. Okay. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So this thread is full of, here's robots, drones, autonomous drones that are, picking weeds and fertilizing or doing whatever they do, planting seeds. Here you've got another autonomous drone that's treating, I don't know what it's doing here, going through our farmers' fields.
Have you ever watched or, gotten sidetracked by watching just farm equipment?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Anyways, this is basically just the same as that, but there's just nobody driving it.
You want to know something funny? So youth in America are leaving farming. A lot of farmers are having a hard time getting their children to take over the farms. A lot of it has to do with death and estate taxes and stuff like that. But there's a huge move amongst the goth community to go get farm jobs.
Really?
So if you go on like TikTok or Instagram, you can find farm reels coming out of the Midwest with girls primarily that are driving these massive tractors, and they're goth. They got like the black fingernail and stuff, and they're driving these tractors. It's the only job that it doesn't matter how you look. You can have as many piercings on your face as you want. There's no customer service to drive a John Deere tractor.
That's funny.
So this drone situation is a really big deal. Jan Bongino on his podcast yesterday said he spent a huge amount of his time at the FBI as the deputy director of the FBI addressing this drone threat.
It's in global security.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
Sorry, it was
security risk. Right this second is drone warfare. Dan, drones. Yes, drones. I'm telling you, when you're sitting there where I was for the last year and reading this stuff, you're like, but this is not good. Folks, this is coming here. It is only a matter of time, and your whole life is going to change. I'm going to tell you, two things are going to happen. After the first drone strike happens here, everyone's going to walk out of their house every day and do what? They're going to look up. And second, every time someone hears a buzz in the sky, there's going to be panic. This is a now problem, not in the future. And the only way to effectively stop this is to go to the Death to America crowd and people that hate us and interrupt and, if we can, destroy their supply chain mechanism to send these drones to the United States. Here's Vice Admiral Harwood on Fox talking about exactly this. This encompassed probably 10%, if not more, of my meetings while I was at the FBI, is taking care of this drone problem. Check this out.
This is a real turning point in the war on drones. As we saw in Afghanistan and Iraq, we used drones for ISR. In Ukraine, the Ukrainians started making them kinetic, and now we're seeing mass, swarms. And so that's a real differentiator. And I got to believe we're going after the production facilities to ensure we shut down all these elements of power. And I believe if we're not there already, we may be at the tipping point of really shutting down their ability to project power. And when that occurs, a lot of capacity and focus will go on removing the current regime.
Folks, I'm telling you, just about every meeting I had with foreign partners and elsewhere, the first thing that came up was drones. Meeting about Olympic security, drones. Meeting about the Super Bowl, drones. Meeting about what's going on overseas in Europe, drones. Meeting about Ukraine, drones. Everything is drones because they're cheap, they're effective, and they scare the shit out of people because you can't fly and stop. Just go see what it is. What is that, a bird or a drone? I don't know.
Scary stuff. And drones can be small. What was really interesting was in the beginning of the Ukraine war, they literally just had a grenade or a mortar shell tied to a DJI drone that you can buy at Costco.
Right. Payload, 1 pound.
Yeah. I mean, how many videos did you see where soldiers, crawling on the ground, turned around and looks up? Done.
Is it Amazon or is it?
So then they started blocking the the signals so they wouldn't fly. So then they started doing fiber optic cables.
Right.
We've shown the videos of that. Whole cities just littered with fiber optic. Every one of those fiber optic lines that creates a sheen on top of the town was because a drone flew a pathway right there with an explosive device on it. Big deal. Now, who has capacity to make a lot of drones and has already delivered drones all over the world? China.
Oh,
Okay. So this big strategy, everything Trump's been doing, taking care of the Western Hemisphere, Venezuela, going after the narco-terrorists, hitting Iran, right? Taking over Lloyd's for insurance. All of this is designed to box China in. On the All In podcast, they talked about this grand plan.
I think the president and the administration have probably the biggest meetings of the term coming up in China in April. My estimation, based on the conversations and the comments made by the president before he came into office and since he's been in office, is that finding a grand bargain or a deal with China is probably one of his top priorities. And if you think about the importance of that, is the U.S. going to wade into a giant global conflict led by a U.S.-China rift, or is the U.S. going to find some grand bargain? I think he would probably have a preference for the grand bargain. And that being the case, I think you could look at in the context of Maduro and the actions in Iran as creating maximal leverage going into those negotiations. The
reason for that, Freeberg?
90% of the oil that comes out of Iran goes to China. And there's been a long developing and developed relationship between Maduro's government and China. And these are big economic drivers or support the economic driving in China. So creating leverage by having significant influence or damage or destruction to those supply chains for China gives the United States footing to be able to negotiate a better deal for America. I would imagine that the president's intention here isn't to go and decide who should be in charge and drive regime change and end in a multi-year conflict with Iran. But ultimately, if there's some transaction with China that gets everyone out of this and puts the U.S. on a strong footing where American businesses can sell into China, which is very challenging, as everyone knows today, and there's parity, regulatory parity, economic and trade parity between the U.S. and China. There's a point of view on what happens with Taiwan and availability of key technologies like semiconductors. I think it could be a win-win. And I think that a deal with China could be the crowning achievement of this administration, particularly going into the midterms. So the timing is right. And I think that's probably a core part of the motivation here.
Yeah, sounds like a great altruistic plan. Let's make peace with our mortal enemies. China.
It would be awesome.
China has partnered with Canada, which, by the way, this is your future.
Uh-oh.
Okay. This northern border, once we take care of that southern border and everything in the south, we're going to have to turn to the north because this is a strategic problem. Carney struck a security agreement with China. Now, remember.
Hey, hold on. Before we go on in, remember when we had the signing of all the Western nations? Was Canada part of that?
No.
Oh.
That was Latin America.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So here's the thing. China signed a security agreement with Canada. This is a big, big deal. So let's listen to this. And there's details here that matter big time. So you wonder why Trump is kind of aggressive with China. It's because of this.
Okay.
Mark Carney is hiding from Canadians the full extent of his so-called strategic partnership with China. He sold it as a trade deal, but in fact, there's much more to it. Carney's partnership includes an agreement on law enforcement cooperation, whereby the RCMP will work hand in hand with Beijing's Ministry of Public Security. This should set off alarm bells. After all, the Beijing regime has no regard for the rule of law. They don't respect due process. They don't have an independent judiciary. There is no civilian oversight of the police, and they have an atrocious human rights record. For Beijing, the overriding objective of law enforcement is to advance the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. This is a regime that routinely uses law enforcement as a means for intelligence gathering and for political oppression. Criminal labels are frequently applied to political targets, not only in China, but around the world, including in Canada. Beijing's Ministry of Public Security is actively involved in foreign interference and transnational repression activities on Canadian soil. Chinese police have set up multiple illegal police stations in Canada to harass and intimidate Chinese Canadians. Chinese police operating illegally in Canada have even forced the repatriation of Canadians back to China. According to a recent report of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, Chinese police have gone so far as to pay agents to locate and track Canadians critical of a Beijing dictatorship. This is happening in Canada. Madam Justice Hogue, who headed the public inquiry on foreign interference, concluded that Beijing is the most active perpetrator of foreign interference in Canada. In the face of all of that, it is no wonder that less than a year ago, Mark Carney stated the obvious.
I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
But now, Mark Carney wants to partner with Canada's biggest security threat on matters of security. If there is any area that Canada should not be cooperating with Beijing on, it's on security and law enforcement matters. Don't just take my word for it. 10 Hong Kong diaspora organizations have sent an open letter to Carney expressing deep fear and anxiety about this agreement. Targeted communities are understandably worried that Beijing will use this agreement to expand its transnational repression activities in Canada under the guise of law enforcement. In the face of legitimate fears from communities targeted by Beijing, Mark Carney's silence about this agreement has been deafening. There hasn't been so much as a public statement from Carney about it. Carney is effectively trying to hide this agreement from Canadians. He has not released the full text of the agreement. As a result, we don't know if there are any safeguards or oversight mechanisms to protect Canadians from a regime that poses a significant national security threat. The bottom line is working with Beijing on law enforcement is outrageous. If Mark Carney truly cared about Canada's sovereignty and the safety and security of Canadians, he would never have entered into such an agreement with one of the world's most oppressive police states and human rights abusers. Mark Carney, do the right thing and pull out of this dangerous agreement immediately.
And become the 51st state.
Who are Canada's best allies?
Well, we used to think it was us.
I know. I wonder who they think it is.
Apparently China.
Right. Who's, I mean, you're always, it's always like, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
I don't think that's what's happening.
No, I don't think so either. The other thought that I had was, have you ever played Risk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like a 6 hour?
Yeah.
Okay. So like if you're like 6 hours in, there's usually only how many people left?
2.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about this, like, as this was a game of Risk that we're playing in the world and we're just playing away. And you have this friend of yours that that the two of you that are left are like, well, we don't want to kick him out. So we'll let him stay on the board. That's Canada.
Yeah, exactly. and they're using it's security, right? So when they say that, there probably will be Chinese nationals that get green cards or whatever they call them up there to go be police officers in China. But more specifically, it's the AI. It's the surveillance state. They're going to use the Chinese surveillance state and the tools that they've built in Canada for law enforcement, which is going to give China access to all that information. So let me tell you this. Yesterday, up on the board here, the FISA database. What's the FISA database, Ron?
Oh, geez.
Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
I got that.
And this is essentially those big data centers in Lehi, Utah, the NSA, where they gather up every text message and every phone call and every security camera feed, everything that crosses over the internet. They grab that information and database it. Someone hacked it.
Whoa.
Someone is snooping to see if they are on the list. FBI identifies suspected hack on sensitive network used to manage wiretaps and intelligence surveillance warrants, and it's the FISA hack. FISA just got hacked. Now, they're downplaying this, acting like a sensitive network used to manage wiretaps. They hacked FISA. They hacked FISA.
Do we know who did it?
So Elon Musk, no, not yet. Okay. Elon Musk has said that the problem with mass surveillance is on the problem of the data collector. How many people are you going to have watching these live feeds and reading these messages and these emails? Well, it turns out with the advent of AI, it's not that difficult. It can go through millions, billions, trillions of lines of code, read messages, look at pictures and decide what they are.
Really fast.
You want to talk about mapping networks and stuff like that? It's unbelievable. And what could they do with that information? Well, they could persecute you. They could target you. They could psyop
war
you.
Game.
They can advertise to you. They can probably get your genetic stuff because I'm sure your medical records have been transmitted over the internet. Okay. Who knows? Do you think they could maybe fake voter data? Probably could. And here in Washington, we just found out yesterday, every Washington resident with a driver's license or ID may have been exposed in a massive data breach that the Department of Licensing knew about for 6 years and hid anyway.
Son of a
Iro News. I know. Every Washington resident. This is absolutely incredible. This attorney filed a lawsuit to the DOL claiming the agency knowingly allowed major security flaws in its License Express system, potentially exposing personal information of every resident in Washington with a Washington state license or state ID. Such exposure could lead to severe consequences for residents, including stolen identification, stalking, and voter fraud. Oh, I wonder where we get all these extra voter registrations right at the last minute before a vote. And it just happens to be the margin of victory for the Democrats.
What I want to know is who helped them steal the data. You know, like they stole the $500 million in the Nigerian scam.
I know. Oh, dang.
Oh, we turned the freaking security off for 30 minutes. What happened?
Yeah, no kidding. The first red back, DOL sends 50 to 75 licenses to an apartment. One apartment. I wonder how many people registered to vote there. And the first tip was when the DOL noticed that 50 to 75 driver's license went to the same apartment in Puyallup. They were all ordered by the same guy with the same email address and were all paid for by a burner visa. It wasn't very long before we figured out, yes, indeed, they were sending out batches, literally dozens or hundreds of licenses at a time to individual addresses.
Oh, boy.
He said the agency lost its online DOL system in 2018, and by 2019, it would recognize hundreds of instances of abuse and fraud. One of the reasons they decided not to follow state law and notification is that they didn't fix the problem. And you hate to notify people. Hey, by the way, your identity might be stolen, might be at risk, and still is. We're just going to leave it hanging out there in the wind.
Just ahead of the 2020 election.
I know.
Just saying.
Great timing. Thanks, Kristen Wyman, or what was her? Kim Wyman.
Kim Wyman.
He noted the DOL took an entire system down in February 2025, right after Trump got in, and it appears the issue was fixed. But Ard is hopeful that Washington Attorney General's office will open an investigation if they want to dig in and fight instead of finding a way to make Washington's criticized citizens whole. They've got a lot of resources to do that. Unfreaking believable. Right. And how does that play in? It plays in with voter fraud, guys. Patrick Byrne in his car was talking to Emerald Robinson. I love how, like, news now, it's pretty normal for people to do news hits on the side of the road in their cars. This is crazy.
You can tell who they are from who's fighting election integrity.
Like someone like Mitch McConnell, who's basically a zombie in Congress now, but still fighting the election integrity effort. And you made a very important. There's many others. You made a very important point, and that is in this movement to secure our elections, we do often forget it. The key part of this is counting in the precinct. It's counting there locally on the ground and reporting up. Because one way they've controlled the elections is by moving it to central reporting, right, where it's top down. The state tells you, like in Georgia, the state started telling them what their tallies were for each precinct, and that just allows for the county.
Once you're moving ballots, there's no integrity around the supply chain. So for the same reasons you can't mail them, just like you don't mail cash, you don't mail ballots. The Postal Service supply chain is nowhere near the integrity to handle something this valuable. For the same reason you can't have people driving it in from the precincts in the back of their car in a bag into the county to be checked, because the supply chain does not have any integrity.
The supply chain doesn't have any integrity. You've got to do it locally. Why? Because if you do it from the top down, it's just like the driver's licenses. If 75 people are voting and it's the same guy with different IDs, you're going to catch that when they walk into your local school gymnasium over and over and over and over and over again to vote.
With a bundle under their arm.
Yeah, put the bundle under their arm, ballots to drop off. Okay. But if you don't do it locally and allow local people to see the eyeballs of the people voting and look at their ID, you're going to run into these situations. And Washington apparently there's probably thousands, hundreds of thousands of licenses that have been duplicated.
I'll tell you what, there's enough to accomplish whatever the mission is.
There's enough to flip the election for your local dog catcher. I'll tell you that. You could probably even get a Patty Murray into the Senate if you tried.
For 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. This is a zero-sum game. We're entering in a world with AI. Someone's got to win. Somebody had to win the game when it came to worldwide trade. Britain did it. United States took over. AI is the new way of trade, right? AI is going to be integral in every major system that has a lot of data involved. And so the Palantir CEO talked about this. But before we play this video, I want to tell you guys, we're going to jump over into subscription only private here in just a minute. And you mentioned earlier that sometimes you watch these newscasts, it's like you're watching an Onion episode. Yeah. We're going to watch a little clip about J.D. Pritzker when he was elected governor of Illinois. That is the ultimate Onion episode. You're going to ask yourself, how is this possible? But it's going to explain so many things. Okay. So please, if you're not already a premium member, you've got a little bit of time right now to hurry up and subscribe, upgrade your subscription so you can be with us over on the private and check out this video. If you already are, stick around because you're going to laugh really hard. So here's the Palantir CEO explaining how with AI, it's a zero-sum game. And a lot of AI makers don't recognize that it's a national game. It's not a corporate game.
I want to get back to something you just said, which is that, it's either us winning or China winning or Russia winning or another country, that it's a zero-sum game. And it feels like the people in this room and Washington really understand that AI is zero-sum, but that Silicon Valley doesn't. Silicon Valley doesn't like to think in terms of zero-sum. They like to think that everything is a positive-sum game. So how would you explain to the people in Silicon Valley who are, again, building the LLMs, building what they would say is a brand new, net new technology that hasn't existed before and therefore it needs to be treated differently? What would you say to them about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's by the way, I just want to push back slightly. They do think it's zero-sum. They think it's zero-sum versus each other. Mm-hmm. So they absolutely are fighting. There will be it's my own rhetoric, but I happen to think it's true. It's going to be chips, ontology, and I suspect in the end, one and a half provider. So they pretend they don't think it's zero-sum, but then ask them how they feel about their competitor. Yeah, so it's true. Very, very, these people are fighting very, very hard for the dominant position. So what they don't understand is in the world, it's zero-sum. But I actually think the primary issue in the Valley is it's going to be zero-sum vis-a-vis you when America decides that, look, okay, I interact with a lot of political figures. I have a lot of respect. I think in some are, when politicians figure out this is the one winning issue, it is going to be zero-sum. It's going to be your money and your company being zero-sum nationalized. So that's the part they don't understand. Helping people understand that, either we set the rules or de facto, I'm much more on America should be strong so that we don't have to worry about the enemies, then our enemies are evil kind of thing. So I'm not super neocon. It seems to be very hard in this culture, as someone who's lived abroad a lot of my life, it's very hard in this culture to explain to people that we're in a competitive environment because things here are so good, they don't understand how different it will be and how much we will change and how much the pressure will be on America, not just legally, but militarily and culturally, if we fall behind.
It's that Lebanon story.
So he just confirmed something to me that I've been thinking about for a couple of weeks. Remember when we had, what was it, like a week ago when Donald Trump or whoever decided that we don't want, what's the AI that we're...
Palantir.
No.
Or Claude.
There was another one.
Anthropic.
Anthropic. That's the one. As soon as they announced oh, we're done with them and we need some other, and I had this thought immediately, what happens to us if these AIs start battling each other?
Yeah.
And then is that going to suck up our resources? And how would we even know? And then I started thinking, well, maybe you could watch for electronic spikes on the network and, and I just started thinking about this. We don't know what we're doing here when it comes to AI and in how long before these things start to infight. And then all of a sudden we're just on the sideline kind of watching this thing happen while our entire economy crumbles as these two AIs duke it out and our networks become uncontrollable.
Well, that's what they say. That's one of the arguments for decentralizing. See, there's the tack towards centralization, which is a collectivist mindset, and there's a tack towards decentralization, which is a democratic mindset. And so what they've said is you can't have one model that rules them all. You need thousands of models so that it's like individuals, they compete, right? If you have a challenging problem, feed it to 5,000 of them, and maybe 10% of them will come up with the wrong answer or will lie or lazy.
But what I'm saying is, what if each one of these, I mean, each one of these AIs has the ability to like just sift through all information ever, right?
Yeah.
Well, if all of them are all sifting through all the information and fighting it out, that is going to soak up so much energy. It's going to be costly.
It's going to be costly. Yeah. But it's zero sum. Someone's got to win. Someone's got to lose.
All right.
And that's why we want America to be, our values to be written into AI. It's important, right? And they go through different things because this is like, apparently, they modeled it after the brain and the neural networks, and we don't really what's going on inside the black box. And, when they lie, we think that they're hallucinating. No, they're literally lying. They're giving you the wrong answer.
That's wild.
Right? The other thing too is they're only as good as what they learn. It's just like what I said. You're only as good as the information you have. So a lot of these are training on publicly available data.
Right.
And some of that publicly available data is bullshit.
Yeah, I know. It's like trash in, trash out. But
the other thing too is they have this weird valuation with words. So for example, they say, would you what would you allow, or something about a nuclear weapon if somebody is torturing someone? It was like, oh, we would definitely torture someone. And then it says, would you misgender someone? Oh no, we'd drop the nuke. We would never misgender someone. They don't know the difference of scale on like pain. You know what I mean? Like these words have different, somewhere they've learned that torture is acceptable, but misgendering is never acceptable.
Well, eventually you're talking with computers, everything's binary eventually. So everything eventually is a 1 or a 0.
Hey, Fraser, I got a joke for you. You're going to like this joke. Okay. Who invented computers? Who started the computer, the process? It was Jesus Christ, right? Don't computers, it's all binary. It's ones and zeros, right? Didn't Jesus say, let all your communication be yay, yay, or nay, nay?
That's perfect.
It's like Al Gore inventing the internet. All right, guys, it is time for us to
No, hold on. Check the chats.
Check the chats. Okay, PMA, yes, Peasants Perspective hosts. So we have the 1776 Live and Peasants Perspective Liberty Lounge every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. So it's hosted by Lisa and I. It's absolutely wonderful. You get to get a flavor of the 1776 Live community. We talk about concurrent events, and it's the merger of these two communities. So please, when you see notifications go out on Sunday afternoon, we would love to have you join the Liberty Lounge. We had a good one last week. Yep, so very fun. Okay, guys, we are going to jump over into private, and we are going to learn something hilarious about J.D. Pritzker's administration. It is going to feel like an Onion episode. So if you're not joining us, you should, because it's really good. Cheat code. You can always download the audio. All right. Talk to you guys later. In the Unoffendables, let's go into the private.